Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Long Shot Podcast, brought to you by 342 Productions. I am your host, Duncan Robinson, and I am back here with Davis Reed again on the Long Shot. And gosh, does it feel good, Dave?
Say it with your chest, man. We are back. Yes.
Excited to be here. Obviously, address the elephant in the room. We're coming off a brief hiatus. Quite frankly and candidly, I wish it was a longer hiatus.
Right.
As many know, we the Miami Heat and yours truly had an early exit in the NBA playoffs, certainly earlier than we all expected. We're going to unpack that series and playoff basketball in greater depth on actually the next episode. So basically, Davis and I are currently, I'm in New Hampshire visiting my beautiful mother. Davis is back in Kansas City, but we have some exciting things on the horizon. We're heading to the City of Angels here shortly. Wow. And we're reconvening for, obviously I'm handling my training for my day job, if you will, but we also have some exciting podcast things coming up here.
I would say it's a podcast trip. You can try to frame it as like your off-season training. Yeah, there's some basketball stuff you're going to do. You'll probably lift some weights every once in a while. But the way I see it is we're going out there for podcast stuff only. So it's weird that you would try to change the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to do as many interviews, conversations in person as possible. As much as Zoom has provided us with opportunity, we've learned to really love the human-to-human interaction without this screen in between us. So we're excited to get to that. And that's partially why this front of show right here is going to be a little bit more abbreviated than maybe many would expect. Obviously, we have so much to talk about, from playoff basketball to that series with Milwaukee, recapping the season. There's just so much there. Whether you're a Heat fan or a basketball fan, or just a fan of Davis Reed, there's a lot there to talk about. Yeah, but we are recording this on Wednesday. And it would feel a little bit disingenuous not to touch on basically the latest and greatest in news. I wouldn't say it's great news, right. But the fact that two perennial all-stars it's looking like they're going to be missing significant time in their respective series moving forward. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible. It adds to a laundry list of guys who have missed time. In fact, like right as we started recording this, LeBron went on his little Twitter rampage might be the wrong word, but he had some words to say about the quick turnaround and a lot of guys missing time. It's obviously terrible as a fan. I mean, speaking from fans' perspective, obviously you want to see some of the best players in the world going at it for a championship. So for there to be no Kawhi hurts, I thought the Clippers had a real chance to come out of the West. And then CP3, we don't really know what's going on. Hopefully he's back on the court very soon.
Yeah, there's obviously some ambiguity with the CP3 thing. I will say, for some reason, it just always seems to be Chris Paul. And I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason to it other than, I don't know, maybe the guy just has bad luck. But it's really unfortunate to see the way they were rolling. And hopefully, you know what, honestly, it might get all figured out by the time that series starts next week. Kawhi is probably a more unfortunate one because it's like a physical health. From all accounts, CP3 is doing well and is healthy, has just tested positive. But for Kawhi to have an ACL injury, regardless of the severity, that's, a little bit more dicey, I would say.
It kind of feels like Chris Paul's in a State Farm commercial just constantly. You know those ads where he's like, something bad's going to happen. Is like, yeah. Jake's here. Something bad's going to happen. Maybe Jake just is around Chris Paul in real life too.
That's an interesting take.
I don't know. I'm thinking outside the box.
No, I think that one might have some legs to it. So anyways, we're heading to Los Angeles. I'm going to be out there for a little while training, getting ready for next year, gearing up with my workouts both on and off the court. And Davis really doesn't really have a choice because he's no longer my friend. He's just my business partner.
Correct.
So it's a business trip in many ways, shapes, and forms. But we're excited for it.
Yeah, we've talked about this. As this podcast grows, which hopefully it continues to, our friendship might be diminishing over time. So it's an investment that we're making. We now have to see each other and talk once a week, which doesn't really give us reason to do anything outside of that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some truth to that. It changes when you were required to pick up a phone call.
Correct.
Due to contractual obligations. Anyways, one thing we did want to touch on was the transition period for American Airlines Arena, formerly known as American Airlines, currently known as FTX Arena.
Yes.
For those not familiar with FTX, it is a cryptocurrency company. It's kind of like a marketplace for the trading of crypto. If it sounds like I'm in over my head talking about this, it's because I am. But that's probably my best explanation of it. But anyways, we thought it would be fun, given it no longer being American Airlines, to recap some of our favorite moments from the AAA days.
Yeah, it's just sort of paying our respects. That arena has played a very important role in your life, and it's still standing. But let's just keep that in mind. But with a name change, it's a passing of the guard, if you will. Yeah. So we'll just pay our respects to AA.
So what are we doing here? Do we each get two, or are we just kind of rattling them off?
I think maybe you give us maybe we each give like our top two moments, your personal top two moments in American Airlines Arena history.
So personal, I would probably say, making my debut, my NBA debut, is probably up there. It was I believe, early November game against your New York Knicks, at home, obviously, and checked in around, I want to say 10 to go in the second quarter. And yeah, I'll never forget that feeling, running to the scorer's table, all giddy and ready to go. So for me, if we're going to make this personal, that's certainly up there. But the other one, I could go a couple different directions with this. D-Wade's final game in there was absolutely electric. It was against Philly. I actually played in that game as well. That was kind of like a throwaway game for us at that point. We were out of the playoffs. It was my first year, but to see the electricity in that arena, to see him get up and get back on the scorer's table in that moment was pretty special. But I alluded to this earlier in the podcast, or should I say in a previous episode. The greatest moment was Udonis Haslem's stint this year.
Wow.
And I mean that. That was as exciting, as exhilarating of a moment as I've ever seen in that place. To see him go toe-to-toe with Dwight Howard, to see him hit a patented Udonis baseline jumper, get a layup, and then after 95 seconds of action, proceed to get ejected, was just about as special as it can get.
Isn't it a thing that after like big soccer matches, you have like fans fighting and that stuff's all going on just because there's so much adrenaline? Yeah. It felt like that was going to happen that night in AA. Like people were just so fired up. There was it felt like something bad was going to happen. Nothing did, but that's just the energy that little stint shot through the entire arena.
I think you're alluding to those videos that I've seen of English soccer teams opposing fan bases, or actually it's not even in England always. It's in random countries.
Oh, yeah.
Where they'll meet in mobs on the street and people are firing flares into the opposition. Anyways, little tangent there.
We don't condone that behavior.
Certainly not. What are your most memorable or some of your favorite?
So if I'm going to go one personal as well, and it's not your first game played, but your first start, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was against Phoenix in that first year.
Why is that memorable to you?
So here's why. I remember I was watching the game, the picture comes up of the starting lineup, and you're in there. And I took a picture on my phone, and I thought, this is such a monumental moment. Duncan is starting an NBA game.
Right. This will never happen again.
Correct. This will never happen again. So that picture is on my phone, and I just thought, this is it. We've made it. We've done it. For full transparency, I think it's good to practice full transparency. Did not think that was going to happen again. I thought that I snapped the picture, and we could just, we could frame that. That was it. That was the mountaintop. So it's just, now looking back on that moment, it's pretty special. Look at where we are now.
Yeah. Well, at that point, in the likely chance, because at that point things were looking a little grim. I appreciate you for capturing that moment and that image. I believe we went on to lose to a 13-win Suns team. I think that's right. Proceeded to shoot, I want to say 2 of 7, 2 of 8 from 3 from the floor or something.
2 of 6, 1 of 5 from 3. I've got the stats in front of me.
As well as a relatively underwhelming defensive performance. So of all the memories you could choose, it's a little disappointing you choose that one. But nonetheless, it sticks out to you, so I can't knock you for that.
This is also an opportunity to let people know, for those of you that watch our videos on YouTube, when we are in our home studio, which is Duncan's guest bedroom in Miami, there is a box score that hangs on the wall. And I can tell this now because I don't think it's ever going to be in the background again, because, I just think it's time to, we'll move on. But anyway, it is a random box score of a game from Duncan that you did not play very well in. No one really knows why it's framed, but you have it framed in your apartment. So it always is special to honor those games. It's good to remember those moments. You know what I mean? I think it's a high because it's your first start, but then you don't play great. It's important to remember that.
I want to get out in front of Davis somehow alluding to me maybe not being in Miami moving forward. That's not at all what that was. There's been a lot of speculation, confusion. Davis, or somebody, I should say, on our social media posted that, quote unquote, we're back
was not
recently.
Me.
And there were a lot of people in the comments somehow putting together that meant that I was coming back to Miami, which for the record, I would love to do, but we're also just not in the time frame where that type of news gets broken.
Right. Not even close.
We're about a month and a half removed. So basically what I'm saying is there will be no free agency Easter eggs dropped in the podcast. Now, with that being said, are there plans to have maybe some sort of an announcement, included in the podcast? Now that's a different story.
Whoa.
So make sure you like and subscribe for future episodes, because you could be Woj, you could be breaking news if you're listening to the Long Shot Podcast. Not that we need to go down that path, but I felt like I needed to address that could be taken out of context. Anyways, that was fun or did you give another one?
No, let me give my second one.
All right, do your second one.
Also, just to clear things up, because, this is clearly a sensitive issue for you. My reference to us not using it anymore is because you hate it. And so yes. I just think as your friend, as you've alluded to earlier, we're business partners now, not friends. But every once in a while, I'll have a friend moment. And because you hate the box score so much, we can retire it. All right, fine.
I don't actually hate it. It's just kind of like an inside joke that nobody really understands except for us, but whatever. Anyways, continue with your second moment.
All right, my second moment, I think the obvious one is the Ray Allen shot. Like, I can remember exactly where I was. It's just that's a moment that's going to be etched in my mind forever.
That's low-hanging fruit. I want something a little more creative.
It's too much of a low-hanging fruit. So what I'm going to go with instead is Dwayne Wade's dunk on Anderson Varejao. That that is just a special. I don't know why that highlight is one of my favorites. I go to it frequently, actually.
No, it's an electrifying play. It's vintage Flash, if you will. Still, I felt like you could have done something a little bit more personal to you.
There are some runner-ups. Like I'm big. I was a big LeBron fan circa 2013, 2014. So that jumper he hit in Game 7 to sort of ice the game, that little mid-range jumper with, I think it's under 30 seconds left. That's up there because that was like, oh my God, they're going to win another championship. You've got D Wade's game winner against the Warriors.
Oh, that was special.
That you're a part of, right? You're chasing them around the court.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's up there.
There
are a lot of great ones to pick from.
No, that's good stuff. Anyways, now that we're transitioning to FTX, I guess this can be a shameless crypto plug. If there's anybody out there with any sort of competent cryptocurrency advice, please feel free to slide in the Long Shots DMs because we're two people that are interested in it that have no idea what they're talking about. We'll leave it at that. Let's transition to Reddit question of the week here. Dave, what do we got?
So it's playoff time. So it feels right that this is a kind of a generic one, but I would love to know what final matchup you think would be the most entertaining. And this comes from user Vacrich. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but they ask what finals matchup would be the most entertaining. So what do you think? What do you got?
So I like this question. I'm going to throw out the disclaimer that this is barring both teams are fully healthy. Okay. I think an incredibly interesting finals matchup would be Brooklyn and Utah. And my reasoning for those two teams is that Brooklyn is everything that the general public perceives being a great modern day NBA team is. It's star power with role players. It's three guys that are going to have 25% or higher usage, and everyone else is just going to kind of fill in around them. Now, on the contrary, you have Utah, which they are very anti-modern NBA, the way that they play. They get off the ball doesn't stick. It changed a little bit in the playoffs. You've seen a little bit more usage out of someone like Donovan, which isn't a bad thing, but their offense is very decentralized in that they play through a variety of guys, and so often they're not in ISO situations, but instead driving sprays, driving kicks. So for that reason, I think it would be just a really fascinating matchup to see those two teams square up. I think it would tell you a lot about what is winning basketball in today's NBA. And that's to say, like, I would be a believer that, like, I'm always going to be on the side of, like, quote unquote, playing the right way, sharing the ball, moving the ball is the way to play. Now, with that being said, those guys in Brooklyn have a lot of star power. So that doesn't mean that I think Utah would necessarily beat them, but I think it would be just a really interesting contrast of styles.
Wait, so give us your pick. Who do you think wins that matchup?
I mean, as much as I just gave Utah all that love, I also just watched Kevin Durant
correct
just single-handedly
right
basically carry a team to victory over a really good. So I think I would probably take Brooklyn in that matchup, but I think it would be a really good series, is my point.
Yeah, I don't know if you can bet against Kevin Durant after what. I mean, I think he's sort of solidifying himself as the greatest player in the world again, because I think he was doing that 2 years ago as well. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Utah and Brooklyn would be fascinating. I'm going to go a different direction, though. I'm going to go Phoenix against Phoenix. I'm going to go Phoenix, Milwaukee. Because you have the narrative of Chris Paul trying to win a championship. If they make it to the finals, you have to think he's back by then. Well, again, we don't really know what's going on with his COVID protocols, but you've got CP3. This is his window, it seems like, trying to win a championship against the Bucks, who haven't been able to get it done. If they have any year to get it done, it also feels like this is the one. Their window might be open. So it's sort of like two teams with legacy on the line. Window's open now. Can you get it done? So I think if you've got those two facing off, it would be fascinating. And I really like Phoenix. I think they are rolling. I'm also a little bit of a homer now because we just had an awesome conversation with Mikhail, but Phoenix, Milwaukee, that's what I'm going with.
For the record, I really like Phoenix as well.
I don't know, man. It sounds like you really like Utah.
Well, that felt a little kind of like ESPN First Take-ish, where you just took the opposite of my stance, which is like kind of disingenuous. And now I feel like
that was my answer.
I kind of feel like you're fracturing and fragmenting the relationship that we've built with our listeners, as we're like honest, tell it like it is journalists.
Don't do this.
Anyways,
don't do this.
Let's transition. We're gonna speed it up here because we do have a great conversation coming up with Mikhail. Let's go to the long shot feature. This one is fantastic.
All timer.
Maybe we've had some great stories. This might be my favorite to date. And it's a little bit of a different direction. In fact, it's as different of a direction as one could possibly go.
Correct.
Really.
But it just shows the lengths that you can extend being a long shot.
I
think all of us have long shot stories. Now, all of us certainly don't have this story, but I think all of us have long shot stories.
So if you don't know the name Michael Packard, get to know it, because my guy is a commercial lobsterman diver. He dives for lobster off of Cape Cod in Massachusetts.
That's your territory.
That is my territory, the great Northeast. Beautiful time of year up here this summer. Anyways, Michael Packard was recently eaten by a whale. You heard that correctly. He was eaten by a whale and lived to tell the story. Now, when that man is inside of a whale's mouth, literally eaten by a whale, and somehow makes his way out, I think that is the purest form of a long shot. I think at that point when you're in a whale's mouth, it's like, this is done. This is over.
It doesn't really make sense. And Jason Gallagher actually doesn't believe that the story's true. I just want to put that out there also.
Are you on the hoax bandwagon?
I don't think I'm on the hoax bandwagon, but I will admit that it doesn't really make sense. The way he tells the story is he's diving. He feels like he just like this push and everything goes black. And then he's feeling around. And what he says is he initially thought it was a great white shark, that he had been bitten or eaten and his body was just in shock. But then he's feeling around and doesn't feel any teeth. So then he realizes it must be a whale. Like that's the only logical explanation. And then another push, light, he sees some light and he's back out. It's just, just ridiculous. Honestly, don't have many words to explain what's going on there. Also, we're laughing because this guy's okay. Obviously, getting eaten by a whale is not funny, but it's just so ridiculous that it's hard to comprehend.
I mean, it's great news to hear that he didn't suffer any major injuries. I think he had some soft tissue stuff and maybe a knee injury. But nonetheless, it's almost like you take those injuries if you can now go around and tell the story that you were eaten by a whale.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Because that is like, I mean, that's just like the ultimate conversation starter. I don't even know if it needs to be a conversation starter as much as he's probably known as the whale guy now.
Right.
Everybody should know him as the whale guy now.
Correct. And I believe he says he's getting right back to diving.
Love it. No fear.
I don't know if I'd get back in the water.
Right back to the belly of the beast. No pun intended. All right, well, that's awesome. Shout out to Michael Packard for that. As we alluded to earlier, don't worry, we're not dodging or avoiding anything. We're gonna talk at length about the season, about the Miami Heat, about our first round playoff matchup, as well as more details about the summer next week. But we really just wanted to get to this conversation with Mikhail because it's a great one, in my opinion. One of the best people in the league, but also one of the best young players who has a ton of potential on both ends of the floor. So I hope you guys enjoy this one.